Welcome to Youthology on AUK Radio every other Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Brought to you by Attentive Social Enterprise. We are your hosts, Manur
and Sarah.
And today we have our guests, Teresa and Kesa, and we'll be discussing violence in young people. So to start, Teresa, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, my name's Teresa, and I am a facilitator and training coordinator with Attentive.
That's great. And Kesa, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, so I'm Kesa and I'm an Attentive Youth Ambassador.
So you both are part of Attentive. Could you please tell us more about your roles in Attentive? So Teresa, let's start with you.
Okay, so yes, my role involves working with the youth ambassadors, mainly from a supportive angle. So about networking or putting on workshops, we'll be there to support and guide. Behind the scenes, I coordinate the mentoring meetings, and from those mentoring meetings may highlight the need for training to take place that we feel that would be beneficial for youth ambassadors to undertake, and also that link to the need of Attentive as a business as well to keep things going and to help the business achieve its goals.
That sounds really interesting. And Kesa, what is your role in Attentive?
So my role as a youth ambassador for Attentive, so we learn through various trainings, different skills and techniques, and then by equipping those skills, we work on different projects, on various topics, and just overall different experiences working with all types of age groups and industries.
That's really interesting as well. So you mentioned different skills. Can you give me an idea of what type of skills you've learned?
So some of the skills that we get taught through our trainings could be like project management, and also public speaking. So it just varies, depends on what it is, and also both like digital and media skills as well.
Wow.
Thank you. So your lives both seem very hectic. So please tell me, how do you guys manage your personal lives, your professional lives, and all the work you do for Attentive?
So I think it's definitely all about work-life balance. It definitely can be a lot sometimes, but I think that just having a set schedule and just kind of planning out your day kind of is what makes it more manageable.
Yeah, definitely. The organization is really important.
I would echo exactly what Kata has just mentioned. You know, it really is about managing your time effectively. It makes it very easy, though, to set aside time for Attentive, because when you're passionate about the work which Attentive does and business at speed, it's actually quite a nice, refreshing way to end your normal working day and pick up the volunteering for Attentive. And the personal life, now that I'm no longer studying myself, I have more time available to give to volunteers.
Wow, that's great. So going back to the skills, what do you think is the most valuable things you've learned in Attentive? So let's start with Kate.
I think the most valuable thing that I've learned with Attentive is just like actually the voices of just young people, and that I think that we do hold value, and also we do have, the capability and adaptability to be, just as capable as like adults themselves.
Yeah, it's so important for that diversity, especially in young people, where we're able to communicate with different people and voice our opinions. So that's definitely very valuable.
I completely agree with that.
So Teresa, what about you? What is the most valuable thing you've learned with Attentive?
I would say the most valuable thing is more knowledge about the Luton area. I cannot believe that I've lived in Luton over 30 years, and it's only since joining Attentive I really got to explore some of the work that was taking place within the community, and for the organisation support charities that are getting involved or to lead on work to support the local area. So I think for me, it's the knowledge gained about the Luton area that has been the most beneficial to me.
Yeah, definitely. So going on from there, we've spoken about attentive. Now let's look at more about your perspectives on violence in young people.
So let me just get this out there. It's very common for young people to get involved with gangs, crime. So why do you think, what drives people to do this kind of stuff?
I guess it could be various factors, maybe like peer pressure, or they just like are not sure about like what path to go down, and they kind of just sometimes it's just, just wrong time, wrong place, and they just find themselves in these unfortunate situations.
That makes sense. Teresa, what do you think?
Sometimes individuals are not finding the school system, or young people are not finding the school system. They may not engage in that. It could be down to peer pressure. They could be truanted from school, but they could be influenced by other people. So there are various different reasons why they do this. It could even be a lack of confidence in one particular area and knowledge in another. So there are very, very different reasons, I believe, that drive young people to get involved in this kind of thing.
Definitely. I think peer pressure is a big part of what drives someone to join, for example, gang activity and things like that. That's why I think it's really important that young people have a positive influence on other young people and just try and help each other out whenever it's possible.
Yeah.
So,
I totally agree, and I want to as well. Also, with this element of peer pressure, we also have to take things back to the home as well and wonder what kind of supervision is taking place within the home environment that is enabling these young people to get involved in these activities.
yeah, definitely. So, from that, what risks do you think are associated with joining a gang? So, okay.
I think firstly their life, and also maybe like future opportunities. It could be risky if they're maybe getting involved in activities that may be illegal. So it can have like a lasting effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teresa, same question.
There are a number of risks. If we go back to when we get involved, we see young people getting involved in gangs. Number one, when is the involvement in gangs actually taking place? So they're actually not involved in education. So to some degree, they're robbing themselves of a sense of having an education. That education which will then lead them to getting the necessary skills that they should be gaining. So, the risk of not having those skills, not having their education, means that they're not going to be able to fully function well within society. They are just driving themselves down into a deeper hole in this element of crime. So I think the risk of not being in the risk of not being involved, will just leave them.
I think that's a very great point about education, because I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is like harm that might come to the person in terms of like injury or like accidents or things like that. But it's really important to see that it's also education that's affected, and I think many people kind of ignore that. They don't really realize that.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially because education is such a big part of a young person's life because it really shapes how the rest of their life will continue. So moving on, like Kiss already said, that there's a lot of, bad things that come along with it, like getting involved in illegal activity. So I'm just thinking, if they get involved in this illegal activity, what bad repercussions will it cause?
I think first of all, especially depending on the young person's age, like regardless, it could be on their record. And I think that, if maybe sometimes if education isn't always the path for them and they want to go into work life straight away, that can kind of have a lasting effect in a negative way, because if they have that, criminal record, sometimes it's harder to find jobs, and it's just like, yeah, it's just like an element and an element. So it's just kind of ongoing. So it just can impact them in other ways that they may have not think about in the moment.
That makes sense.
Even if it's not a criminal record, some people, if they post something negative on social media, that can come back, and then they might not get a job from their employers because they might check like their old posts. So I think it's not just about the criminal behavior, but any sort of antisocial behavior that we should just kind of avoid.
Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking of, you said that they look like employers. They look at past history, like on your social media. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but do you remember there was this story a while ago where there was this lady, she got some like position with the police, and she was the youngest person. And while she completed the interview, it was all over the news and everything. It was really great for her. But then they saw some like Twitter posts which she made years back when she was like a teenager, and it lost her job.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it really just shows how big of an impact it can really cause.
Yeah, I was, again, everything Peso just mentioned, I would absolutely echo. It's so important when you get involved, when young people get involved in crime, it does have the impact of, potential criminal record, depending on the severity of the crime, it's imprisonment, it's their reputational damage that's at stake here. Let's say they go into the prison system and they reform themselves there, even when they come out, they've still got the stigma attached to them as being a prisoner, even though, or an ex-offender, even though they've believed that they've moved on. So, their reputational damage is still out there. So it's so important for education to play a part in what they're doing, and for them to try and stay on the right path.
Yeah, I think like criminal activity and other sort of violent activity does have an influence in many parts of your life. For example, we've said education, but what about your relationship with your friends and family? What do you guys think of that?
I think that maybe sometimes if you're wrapped in, that surroundings, it's very important with who you surround yourself around. So I think that, if you're hanging around with maybe the people with different values, you are just naturally going to be pulling away from your friends and family. And I think that become quite isolating. They may not realise it in the moment, but I think that when you're surrounded in that environment, it can be quite toxic. And
yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think that if you're, let's say your close family friend, or even like your brother or sister, they're involved in this kind of stuff, it doesn't only affect their lives, it makes like a whole atmosphere around it, and there's like this stigma, people don't really talk about it, where it's not only the people that are involved in the gangs themselves, it's the family that surround them, because you're always like in that sense of worry, are they okay, what's the decisions are they making?
Yeah, I think there's also a sense of isolation where if you're getting involved in more negative activities, you feel like you can't really communicate to those same people anymore because what might they think, So like it affects a lot more than what you would initially think, and it's just important to be aware of things like those.
I totally agree. That you have to be aware when young people tend to get involved in crime. They do disassociate themselves from their family members. They start to withdraw themselves, and that's one of the signs, actually. So it's really important. But you're right. It impacts all family members and the relationship building within for friendships, for peers, at school, and things like that as well. So all of those things do need to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, and now we've all said that, people isolate themselves, disassociate from the people around them. But like we said at the very beginning, how the most common influence that drives people towards joining crimes is actually them being peer pressured, and we all said that in the beginning. So why do you think that at the beginning they get peer pressured and they want to fit in, but usually at the end of the game they end up just feeling alone? How do you guys think that might affect an individual?
I think that sometimes there's unwritten social expectations that they may not realise, and I think that they just unfortunately just get sucked into it, and then before you know it, you're already too deep in. So I think, yeah, it's unfortunate, but
yeah, you never want to be the only person that's left out, or the only person that's not getting involved with whatever everyone else is getting involved with. So I think it can be quite difficult to kind of distance yourself from those negative activities.
Yeah, I feel like the initial pressure to fit in really just makes you lose who you truly are, and once you lose yourself, it's difficult to remain in contact with the people who you were once close with. Teresa, what do you think?
Yeah, I think young people will always try to fit in. It is part of the growing up. Let's take, for example, young people in fashion. You buy a nice pair of trainers, your peers see it, they also want the same pair of trainers. Behaviour kind of breeds behaviour in a sense. And if you associate yourself with individuals that are into that type of thing, then it's not going to be very long before you as a young person are going to get sucked into that. So just like you mentioned earlier, it's important for them to kind of know yourself, but it's about as well having the right support network, I guess, around you that can help to keep you on those straight paths and keep you focused with the right support. So yeah, peer pressure is a big one, but I think that if you're guided by the right support, you can pull through.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially because there's that saying, like minds think alike. I think that's how it goes.
So great minds think alike.
There we go, that's the one I'm thinking of. So if you surround yourself with people who, think well, who align with the personal values that you share that you have, I think it can really just make the person, better, improve their mental health, improve how they're doing in school, all around just, improve. So I feel like when they start changing, they lose their values, and then they don't know how to communicate, and they get sucked into the wrong crowd. So I think it's really important, just stick to who you are.
Yeah, I think avoiding peer pressure is one of the main things you can do to avoid this kind of negative behavior. I also think having mentors can also be really helpful, because you have the guidance of someone that's maybe been through something similar, or just knows how to kind of avoid the peer pressure.
Yeah.
So I think those kind of programs, for example, Attentive, they do mentoring. So things like that can be very beneficial. So since we're talking about avoidance, what do you think are some risk factors that might show that a young person might get involved in, for example, gang behavior?
So I think definitely one of the first signs is, are they pulling away from the usual people that they hang around with? And also maybe are they being a bit more distant, not as talkative maybe, and they're just not as open and inviting as they usually are. I think that especially if you know them very well, you can just naturally see that they're changing if they're just losing their personality. I think it's noticeable, and the risks are seen. Maybe have you seen them hanging around with people that they necessarily haven't seen them before? Because I think it's so important that you surround yourself with good people, because who you're around is what you become, essentially.
I think behavioral changes can be a big sign of something happening.
Yeah, behavioral changes is definitely one of the ones. I think when you also see young people coming in with things that, visual things, you've seen a change in perhaps the way in which they look, the clothes that they start to wear, expensive kit, things like that. I think that could show signs that they're beginning to get involved in different types of behaviours. The way they speak becomes slightly different. Just how they act, sometimes they can be a little bit more confident when they're getting involved. So I think, it's important to be able to recognise this and these signs. I know for young people themselves, it's perhaps maybe a little bit different when a young person is trying to recognise the signs of another young person. And that's because they're so busy trying to form that relationship to move forward. But as an older person, it's easier for me to perhaps recognise the signs, given the background that I've worked in that educational setting. So we kind of see the behaviours of individuals change over time as they progress through the years. But like I mentioned earlier, some of the risks that are associated with them are signs that you can also spot. So, like, for example, the parenting, we're not doing well at school. The isolation, the signs of withdrawing, things that can lead them down that path, and just kind of like red flag moments that you think,
that makes a lot of sense, Teresa.
Going, those red flag moments, there's something going on there.
Welcome back to Youthology Radio Show. We've been speaking with our guests Teresa and Kesa about violence in young people. So now we're focusing more on the positivity.
Yep.
So to start with, how do you think people can overcome challenges that may have led them to the wrong path? So we'll start with Teresa.
So I think that they can challenge it by perhaps getting themselves involved in an organisation like Attentive, where they get to meet like-minded young people and are able to gain new skills in a practical, real-world setting. So I think that would be very beneficial for them to do.
I think by young people, putting them in positions where they can actually find opportunities to get themselves into a better position. So whether that's joining an organisation or even something as simple as joining an extracurricular, just finding more opportunities just out of their comfort zone and current circle can help.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just reaching out, meeting new people can make a big impact. So how do you guys think older people with more experience can help, the youth?
I think that definitely, they've been on Earth longer than us, so I think that through their livelihoods and experiences, they can, help project and kind of guide us through phases of our lives that, that they've really experienced.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Valuable. Teresa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as an older person myself, I find it very enriching to work closely with young people. I think that when you've acquired knowledge and experience in your working career, it's very nice to be able to give back and to help a young person to develop and contribute to their growth.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think older people can definitely help a lot. For example, as the role of mentors and role models. So what do you guys think? How do you think a role model could help young people to make positive choices? So, Teresa?
Yeah, so a role model is an excellent idea, and it's just someone that can really listen to them, help guide them on the path that they're going on. Perhaps they even share the same interests, which is really good, or to even find out what the interests are for that young person and to help them pursue those interests, keep them on the straight and narrow. So, yeah, I think good thing to do.
Yeah.
I just think us young people are still navigating through life. So just having a bit of a, a bit of a structured and more helpful role model, kind of helping us navigate through life is just something that's like really important and helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I myself, I have a mentor. I'm not sure if Laiba, my mentor, is listening, but if she is, she's great. She really helps me out a lot. So I know that Montel, the founder of Attentive, he implemented the mentoring scheme because he knew that, us young people, we need assistance with some stuff. And I feel like it's really working because if I'm ever struggling with like some task, I always go to her and she helps me out. And she has just like general information, which I find really useful.
Mm.
So moving on, we all know that we're part of Attentive, we have our roles here, but what do you guys like doing outside, like activities wise? Teresa, what do you do?
Well, for me, outside of Attentive and outside of work, I just like to relax and unwind to any action-packed movie.
Oh, that's nice. Really. Do you have any recommendations?
Do I have any recommendations? There's just far too many. I try to keep up with the series that just whatever there is, the latest thing that ever comes out on Netflix or Prime, I just use it as a way to escape.
No, I'm pretty sure everyone does that now. Netflix and chill.
I just plonk myself in front of.
I think in my spare time I like doing hiking and just going out exploring different new areas, really.
Yeah. I heard that you were part of Duke of Edinburgh.
Yes.
So how was that?
Well, it's very fun. It's definitely full packed, as I'm also youth ambassador for Duke of Edinburgh, and I think again it's just more opportunities and experiences to just project young people's voices.
Yeah, you're supposed to be going hiking. I was going to do it, but then kind of dropped out. But I actually saw you in the presentation for it, and you were with a bunch of other people, and some like hiking area.
Yeah.
So do you think that it's like important for people to go connect with nature,
Yes.
hiking and stuff?
I think as a person myself, I wasn't an outdoorsy person before actually joining Duke of Edinburgh, so I think that it's so important to be outside of your comfort zone, and I think just being on these expeditions, you will not create bonds and experiences like you will in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being outside in nature can definitely help you de-stress a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also like breathing techniques while you're outside because of the fresh air and things like that. So, what other activities do you think might help a young person stay out of trouble and build a better future? Teresa?
I think the other activities are things that learning new skills. So not just skills in school, maybe outside. You talked about just now outdoor activities and pursuits. Just being more creative, rather than buying things, maybe learn to make something, build something, from start to finish. I think things like that where they're actively involved can help. I think also perhaps doing a bit of volunteering themselves can help, and just getting involved within the local community. Maybe doing, help somebody who's slightly older. Just getting themselves out and about, learning new things, staying off their mobile phone devices and being a bit more practical.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, to build stuff and make stuff, I've noticed that there's like a new there's this TikTok community I've seen quite often where they knit, and I've noticed so many people that go to my college, they're all like starting knitting and all this new like hobbies and stuff. I think it's really great, just building stuff, and like you said, it just like brings like peace to a person. You have like full control over it, make whatever you want. It's just like a good way to like unwind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making like different sculptures and different things like that. Attentive are actually holding an expressions project, which we are both deputy managers on. So that basically involves bringing art to make people aware of violence against women and girls. So I think that's such a cool thing, so unique, where you're bringing art and this serious topic together to bring awareness.
Yeah, it can really bring so much personal, involvement into it. You can really express what you feel about it. So I encourage anybody who's interested in this topic to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Just Google attentive, it will show up. It's very common. So let's move on. Do you think social media can have an impact on youth violence?
I think for both positive and negative. So I think that just on youth violence, maybe, bringing more awareness, I think, because so many of us young people are on social media now. So, bringing attention in a different way, like social media, where it's so accessible, can kind of help to prompt and navigate them away from situations like crime.
That makes sense. Teresa, what do you think?
I do think social media can have that kind of impact. But I also think that in the same way that video games or the wrong types of things that have been seen in video games has an impact, so too does social media. If the wrong images are being shared on social media, the young people are picking up these images or these messages and they're running with these views that they're hearing and seeing. So I do believe that it can have an impact,
Yeah, there can be a lot of effect of like cyberbullying, but also positive things like communication with new people that you might not have spoken to otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think the element of being anonymous online can definitely promote a lot of, I guess, youth violence and just not very pro-social behavior.
Yeah, because people can feel like they can just get away with, saying whatever they want, acting however they want, because they think, oh, it's untraceable. But it really is. I've seen those TikTok accounts where their whole, point of their account is just to track people down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about in the last radio show.
Geoguessers.
Yeah, there we go. They're so incredible at what they do, and it's quite scary. So it's just important to remember you are not anonymous. There's always a way to find out who you are. There's a digital footprint for everybody.
That goes back to the employers of like them finding out what you've been posting and maybe using that against like why you shouldn't be hired.
So we should just remember, stay mindful and stay kind.
Yeah. So following on from that, what advice would you give to someone who's perhaps struggling with negative influences or peer pressures? Teresa?
My advice would be to reach out to somebody and to talk, because one of the things with some young people is they don't reach out, they don't talk, they hide themselves away in their bedroom and things like that. So I think it's really, really important for them to be able to open up and take that step to open up and believe that someone will be there to listen and someone will be there to help guide them. So that would be my advice, would be just open up, just talk.
Yeah, and it's important to, like, how there's so many different projects that are going around, like there's Power Youth Action currently that's being run by Attentive, and their whole aim is to empower the youth. So I feel like by the work that Attentive is doing through Power Youth Action, it's really just a good way to show how if a person really does try, they can really get, someone to open up, and there's always a way to connect to somebody. So if you know that somebody's struggling, just try talking to them. It's really important to make sure that people don't feel alone.
So for anyone that doesn't know what Power Youth Action is, it's a Bedfordshire-wide forum for mainly for young people whose voices aren't typically heard. So it's about kind of gathering different people's opinions and just making sure that everyone has a voice. So I think it's something that's really important.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely is. It is so crucial. I think having these platforms, gives a sense of safetyness for them to, there is somewhere to go to. And if you don't feel like you can reach out to the ones around you, there are like other platforms available that will be willing to listen to you and help as much as they can.
Yeah, like I know when I was younger, there used to be these people from different companies that would be coming in. There was Childline, and there was always somebody coming in, like at least once a year from them. There's pretty sure Keach does something as well. Or is that for something? But there's so many different places. I'm sure if you just do a simple Google search, if you're struggling, Google's there to help you. So just know that there's somebody out there. If you don't want to talk in person, there's like these online chats, and just go to them if you need help. So everybody now tell me, why do you think people in general feel that they cannot communicate, and that they should, like Teresa said, they should just like stay alone in their rooms, and they don't want to like reach out to their family? Why do you think that is?
I think that the biggest thing is just simply just fear, and it's just maybe social expectations and who they're meant to be. So it can be hard reaching out when you're in an unfortunate situation, and I think that maybe there's even a sense of shame. So I think that's why people just want to isolate themselves and run away from it, so they let it get to them. But I think that just do take that leap of faith and do reach out, because there are people out there to help you. It's just it can be hard to reach out, but it is viable.
Yeah, Teresa, what do you think?
I'm going to go back to my two stepsons, because when they were younger, it was this whole idea of they don't understand, no one understands me, no one gets me. I can't be bothered. I don't want to speak. But as an adult or somebody else that's around young people, I would say keep pushing, keep reaching out, keep letting that individual know that they can talk to you. They can bring different conversations to you. So I think sometimes young people are just very defensive by nature, but they don't have to be. They just need to take stock and just listen, and know that people are there to hear them, are there to guide them, and want the best for them, which is why we're checking in, which is why we're perhaps asking, how is your day, and things like that. So I just think that it's a two-way communication thing. You have to give and you have to take, and just check in and keep trying, even if the young person is a bit withdrawn, just keep trying to listen.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about creating a positive community, like surrounding yourself with positive influences and people that you can rely on and use for support if you are struggling. So I think it's all about good communication with others when you are finding it difficult.
Yeah, I completely agree. We just need to reach out and know that nobody is ever going through anything alone. And even if you feel like your situation is completely unique, trust me, there's somebody out there that get you. Like, we've all watched the movie Spider-Man. Very random connection, but there's that movie Spider-Man into Spideyverse, and he realized that his situation, which he was like, oh, nobody gets me, I'm all alone in this. He realizes, there's a whole other bunch of people who understand him. And I think that it's just like these movies, they have like hidden messages. And I feel like it just shows that your situation can be so completely strange, and you feel like there's nobody gets me, but there is somebody that gets you, and you just need to open up.
I think it's very common to feel like alienated and alone, but I think oftentimes we forget about the people that are around us and do want to support us and help us. So I think it's always good to reach out if you're struggling, and just keep in mind that people do want to help you. So we're nearing the end of the show now. So just before we end this, what takeaway messages would you guys like the listeners to take away from today's show? Teresa?
I think the takeaway from today's show for me would be to make sure you connect with the individual, make sure you check in, ask them, how they're doing, ask them what their aspirations are, what do they see themselves doing, and to if they do feel isolated, to perhaps get involved in volunteering, like Attentive, or another charity that will, ignite their use the adverb and help them be more motivated so that they can contribute fully in this world.
Yeah, definitely. And Case, last same question.
I think that a key takeaway for today is that no matter what you're going through, there is someone or something to, reach out to, whether that's physically or online. There is always help, and your voices do matter, and your safety is so important. I think that just simply reaching out, like, there are people to help you. And whatever you're going through, like, you simply are not alone. And I know that it's hard to open up, but it is, there are people out there to help.
Yeah, I think communicating with someone and just voicing what you feel can make you feel so much better. No matter what the problem is, just talking to someone can give you an ease of mind, give you someone to just someone that can support you.
Yeah.
So
I agree. So I was just thinking to myself that how everybody's already said, it's important to talk, it's important to know that you're not alone, but it's also important to remember that if you ever feel like you don't have anybody to talk to, and going back to our first topic about why people feel the need that they should join gangs or something like that, that they feel the need that they need to fit in. If you feel like you cannot talk to anybody, the option for you is not to go talk to someone that you think is cool or something, like somebody part of like the gangs that in your local area. They're not going to be there for you in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So if you open up to them, it's going to open you up to a world of just serious crime. And it's important to remember that just because you feel low now, it's important not to feel like there's no more hope and that you should go down that route. There's always another option.
I think a lot of people do go down that route for when they're struggling with their mental health. So I think it's really important to focus on that. And again, communication. It always goes back to communication.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah, just sharing whatever you're struggling with can just help your mental health so much. And just taking some time out of your day to just reflect on how you're feeling and just how you can make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
So yeah. So does anyone have anything else to add?
I think this was a great show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think we discussed some great points, and I
Yeah.
think everyone shared some really good discussion points.
Yeah.
So this has been Youthology on AUK Radio, hosted every other Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., brought to you by Attentive Social Enterprise, which you can find out more about on the Attentive website. So that's ATT10TIVE, Attentive. We have been your host, Manur.
And Sarah.
With our guest, Teresa and Kesa. And we'll see you guys in the next show.